In this tutorial, you'll be creating an avatar character like the one on the screen now. You can either use the image that I provide for you, or you can take a picture of yourself and make yourself into an avatar. If you're going to use the image that I give you, you will download all of your source files and have those on your desktop. And to begin, you'll do File, Open, and you'll select the avatar picture. We'll want to duplicate the background layer, so we'll go to our Layers palette, right-click, Duplicate Layer, and hit OK. And that way we always have an extra image at the bottom if we need to borrow something from that. Our first step into changing her into an avatar would be to smooth out her nose. So there are a couple different ways to do this. I played around with it, and my favorite way is to come over here to the clone stamp tool. It's a little guy that looks like a stamp, so I'm going to click on that, and what we have to do is we have to sample from another area. So I'm going to go up to her forehead, and I'm going to hit the Alt button, and you'll see those crosshairs show up. When you click, it copies whatever was inside of your brush. So there I have the skin from her forehead. So I'm going to click and kind of sponge this on over her nose. I do have the opacity down a little bit so that we can kind of blend it. So just start clicking, and you want to take away any of the kind of the arch from her nose to make it look like she has a broader nose. You'll also want to take away kind of the definition of the nostrils, so it looks like the nose just kind of blends in a little bit more. So I'm just clicking around. And here I have a little bit of an eyebrow, so I'm going to go back up here, hit my Alt again, and take that away. You don't need to worry too much about the discoloration, but I might change it just a little bit so it blends in. So there we have our first step with our nose. Next, we're going to change her skin color and actually the color of the overall picture. You can hit Control and the U key, and that will bring up our hue and saturation. And we're going to change that hue to 180 and leave everything else at 0. So here we have her skin turning blue. The light over here, instead of being yellow, is more of a blue cast. And we're going to hit OK. And now we have our blue avatar. Next, we'll add shadows along her nose, and to do that, we will just use the lasso tool. Now, we don't use this one very often, but it is just the freeform lasso that you're looking for, so you're going to click on that, and I'm going to get closer to her nose here, and I'm just going to click and drag what would have been the inside of that nose and up to the inside of the eye, and get my selection. And then I'm going to Control C to copy and Control V to paste. And so over here in your panels, you have what looks like a see-through layer. We're going to change it, the blending mode right up here, to multiply. And so now we can actually see that. Now we want it to blend in more, so we're going to go to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And mine is already set at the right value, but you'll do 2.9 and hit OK. And so now we have a shadow, and then we're going to make it a little bit see-through. Just whatever looks good to you and looks more like a shadow. Like right there, I have 79%. And then you're going to do the same thing to the other side. So click back on that background copy right here. Get your lasso and do similar to the same area. You have your selection, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Then we come right over here to our blending mode, and we choose Multiply, Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and it should already be at 2.9. So you hit OK, and then again I'm going to bring this down to about 79. When you are doing tutorials like this, if there's something that bothers you, you are more than welcome to change it. Like her shadows right here are a little bit too much for me, so I'm going to just play around with them and bringing the shadows down a little bit more. The original tutorial didn't tell me to do this, but I just think it looks a little bit better like that. So feel free to make some changes. Now the next thing that we're going to do is change the tip of her nose and her mouth to be a little bit pink. Now if you're doing your own picture and you're a boy, you might not want to make your lips super pink, but you do want to change them a color. Honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. On this example, I'm going to change hers to pink. Before we move on, since I'm done with these two layers, I'm going to highlight my first one and then hold down Shift and go to my background, right click and merge those layers so we don't have a whole bunch that we don't need. Now we are going to take our regular lasso again and we're going to go across the tip of her nose and down barely to her nostrils. The big thing with this is to not get too much of her skin in there. So just click and drag, and I'm going to go straight across, then down and around. So we have that first selection made. Then you're going to go up here and make sure that this little button right here is selected, Add to Selection. And that will let you go on down here. And we're just going to go around her lips. And don't include her teeth. And then down and around here. And I'm actually going to make it a little bit bigger because we are going to blend this. There we go. And if you think you need more up here, you can go back and select that and kind of change that around. I'm going to get more of her nostril right here. So once you think you have it about where you want it, you're going to come right in the middle and you're going to right click and layer via copy. And so now you'll just have an extra copy of the nose and the lips, and we are going to go change the color. So again, we're going to hit Control and U to bring up the hue and the saturation. And for the pink color, I'm going to do hue at 99. So we have a bright pink. Now, if I look in here, I see that I've missed some of that skin. So I'm actually going to cancel and go back to my first layer and make a bigger selection. So here I'm going to come out here. And then right click, layer via cut. And then I need to combine these two layers, so I'm going to hold down Shift, right click, and merge layers, and then try the Control U again with 99, and that looks a little bit better to me. It's better to have too much, and I'll show you why here in just a second. If we hit OK, now that I have all the pink, I'm going to go back and touch up, and so we don't want all of this pink down here, so I'll just take my eraser and make sure it's a fuzzy edge and it's kind of see-through, and you're going to blend the lips in with the skin, and you'll just have to click a whole bunch. To get a nice natural blend there. So go around all of your nose and all of your lips, blending, and I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I've blended all the edges so they're soft edges and it looks like they belong there. Now I'm going to bring the opacity down just a little bit to be just what I want it to be. And I actually went and looked online, and it looks like the male avatars have a gray nose. So when you're doing this, if you're doing your own and you want to change, you will be changing the lip color, make it either like a really faint pink or do a gray color. So there we've done our nose, we flattened our nose, added the shadows, and now we've changed the nose color and the lip color, and we're ready for our next step. Before we do that, we are going to merge layer 2 and layer 1 together. So hold down on Shift, right click, and merge those layers. Remember to merge layers and not merge visible, so you still have a backup in case you mess up. Next, we're going to take the model's eyes and replace them with eyes from the avatar. So we are going to cut out the white area and the area with her pupil. So we are going to take the eye off the background so it's easy to see what we're doing. And we're going to get nice and close to her eyes. And we can just use that normal lasso. Come through here. Leave the inside of her eyelids there. Don't cut those out. Once you have your selection, just hit delete on your keyboard. There we go, and delete. And then to get the marching lines off, you'll do Control D. Now she looks kind of creepy, doesn't she? Now go to your tutorial source files and grab the avatar eye and bring it over. And they're actually going to be pretty big, so let's zoom out real quick. And I'll start by resizing them just a little bit. We'll have to resize them some more here. But we'll right click on the layer and rasterize, and then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to cut out the eye, and actually, you know what, you don't even need to be that precise. I'm going to do this whole big thing and right click, layer via cut, and then I go back over here to my original layer and I do the same thing. And the reason you don't have to be very precise is this is going to be behind, so you can just go pretty messy, right click, layer via cut, and then we'll come over here and we'll get rid of that background layer. Then take your 2 layers and put them underneath your model. Ooh, before we do that, let's resize them a little bit. So I'm going to make them a little bit smaller and kind of make them fit, and then put them underneath. Okay, and we want a little bit of the white of the eye to show, so let's make them a little bit smaller. And I'm going to start doing one at a time. Let's see. There we go. And again, it's not going to be perfect, but just get it to where you think it looks good. I wouldn't resize the pupils individually, because then you'll have one that looks bigger than the other and she'll look kind of funky. So make sure you resize them together and then kind of arrange them separately. So if we come back out here, now we have her with kind of her cat's eyes. They look a little creepy. So there she is. She kind of looks a little possessed. Now we're ready to actually change the shape of her face. If you go up here to filter and then liquify, we're going to be making, we'll go a little bit, oh look, she doesn't have eyes. I need to cancel out and I need to merge those layers together and then do filter and liquify. So now she has eyes. I'm going to Control plus to get closer. And what we're going to work on is making her nose wider. We're going to make her mouth smaller, and then we're going to change her eyes. So let's do the nose first. You don't want this big of a brush. We're going to make the brush smaller. Not that small. And we're going to click and drag the nose out slowly. This is where most people or most photographers get in trouble, like if they're touching up a model's pictures, because they'll move it too much and they'll kind of give away. Like if it looks like that, that obviously doesn't look right. So do nice small movements to make sure that everything looks okay. So there we have her with a wider nose. So next we're going to work on her mouth. So just come right out here on the edges and bring the corner of her mouth in just a little bit, And the same thing for the bottom. Just nice small movements. In. And if you look at your Liquify, and then here's what it used to look like, so you can kind of see how much you're changing it as you go. So there we go. Her mouth's smaller. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to give her really big eyes like the Avatar characters have. So we were just working on the forward warp tool. Now we want the bloat tool, and it's right here. And we want it to be, we want it to cover her eyes. So let's make it a little bit bigger, probably up in the 60s. Well, yeah, let's try that. Okay, so I'm going to hold on and just count like 1, 2, 3. So 1, oh, no, that's way too much. Okay, I'll click once. And I'll go over here and I'll click once. Because the problem is that we can make her eyes be lopsided. So when you do something to one side, do it to the other. And I'm going to Control minus to come out here a little bit. Wherever the crosshair is where it will focus. So we're just going to make our eyes a little bit bigger, and I think that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And so if we do Control Z, we can go back and forward, and so you'll really see that we changed her into something that looks a little bit more like an animal. So there was all the Liquify. After we do all the Liquify steps, we're now going to put the zebra texture on her skin. So here we come back, and I'm going to go to my Avatar source files, and I'm going to start with the small one. And this is going to take up about half of her face, so I'm going to make that bigger. And then we need to right click and rasterize the layer, and then we're going to go back to the filter and Liquify gallery. Or Liquify, not Liquify gallery. Okay, so we want this to move and make it look like it kind of goes with her face. So here is where you're going to try to move it. I'm going to come right over here and move it in right here. Oh, I'm using the wrong tool. So I'm going to do Control Alt Z to let go. We want the warp tool. So click and drag this over right here. And then out a little bit more right here, kind of like cheekbones. And then we're going to go down up here, kind of like her hairline. And then right here, we're going to go up, and this will kind of be her cheek line. And then down just a little bit. And then this doesn't matter as much because we're going to cut it off, but it will kind of move your whole area. So we're going to bring up right here and up right here, and then we're going to bring this kind of up and over. Okay? Go ahead and hit OK. And so now that's moved around a little bit. We're going to get our rectangular marquee over here, and we are going to cut part of this off. Press delete. Now we're going to right click and duplicate the layer. Go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Now if we bring this over, it will come together, and it's kind of crazy. It looks kind of like a face to me. So now we need to make these one layer. Click on your top one, hold Shift, and click on your bottom one. Right click, merge layers, and then we want it to cover her face and her chin, so I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. So there, it covers her face. Make the opacity over here around 18 to 20%. I'll go around 18. And then we are going to set the blending mode to soft light. And so there you have the stripes on her face, but we want to get rid of it all around her hair in the background. So to do that, you're just going to do your soft brush and make your opacity a little bit higher up here. And then just make sure you erase everything that's on her hair. And then you can erase around here because we're going to use a different pattern for that. And then you can kind of mess around with where the stripes will go, but I actually like where mine are quite a bit. So there's that. And then I don't see any stripes in her eyes, so I don't think we need to delete that. So there are the stripes for the face. Now we're going to go and do the same thing for her body. We'll have the bigger zebra pattern and hit enter. And I'm going to do one for her throat and her chest. So right click, rasterize, bring it down to around 17, 18. Blending mode, soft light, and then erase the extra. On her black shirt, you're not really going to be able to see all that much. And again, move it around however you'd like it. Erase it from her face. And I'm actually going to go ahead and do the liquify on this one also. Filter, liquify. And I'm going to bring it down to follow the curve there. And it changed it a little bit, but not too much. So there's that. And then I'm going to duplicate that and come down to her arms and erase what I don't need there. And then duplicate that again and bring it to the other arm. And erase. Make sure you get all of this erased so there's not like a ghost zebra pattern back here. And get it all off the sides here. So there we have all of our stripes. So I'm going to merge everything. Click the top one, shift, and click down. Right click, merge layers. Next we'll add some ears. So go back to your source files, click and drag the ears, and hit enter to place those. And I'm actually just going to use this one. So I'm going to right click and rasterize. Right click, layer via cut, and get rid of my ears. And I'll place the first one. And we don't want the whole ear, we want it to stick in the hair. So I'm going to take my eraser and erase that just a little bit. Then I'm going to duplicate this layer. Go back to edit, transform, and flip horizontal. And put it right over here on the other side. We can go up to filter gallery, and then artistic, and choose plastic wrap, and that will make it look a little bit more realistic. Make the highlight strength 11, the detail 1, and the smoothness 8. And then do that to the other one. There we go. And I just went filter and filter gallery, and it just did the same thing again. So now we want to put more hair in front of the ears. So I'm going to go back right over here, get my clone stamp, and copy some hair, just like we did on the nose. And then I'm going to make a new layer and put it on top of my ears. Oops. Alt. Come back up here. And then I just copy some hair so that it looks like the ears are tucked back in the hair. So now we have ears. Next are our dots for the little lights that are on their skin. So we're going to come back over here, and for me this is the most difficult because I don't like random. It bothers me, but there's really no right way to put this on. There's typically more on the nose and right here on the forehead, and then kind of on the cheeks and a little bit on the chin. So I'm going to go really small, and I have a white fuzzy brush, and I'm just going to click and add some stuff, and see, I want them to be smaller than that on the nose. So just randomly click. Think of these almost like freckles. And then you can start making them a little bit bigger. And I'm going to kind of do a little bit of an accent pattern. And just add random. So I'm just clicking around wherever we want to put them. Okay, so we have our dots. Now we're going to go over here to the layers and double click, and we're going to do an outer glow and click on it, and the blending mode should be screen. The opacity is going to be 28%. Oh man, I connected it with the other, so I'm going to cancel that, and we're just going to leave it because I think it looks fine. So next we're going to add more eyelashes to her. So you're going to load your eyelash brushes right up here in your brush, click down and over and load, and go to your source files. I have my eyelashes right there. So I'm going to come down, and there are eyelashes for each side. So you can choose which ones you want to use. I'm going to use these really thick ones. So here is for this eye. Make them fit your eye. And that's around 79. Oh, that doesn't look good, does it? Make sure you're on black. Let's try 60 something. There you go, 66. And so there, that just gave her a little bit more eyelash. And now you're going to go on the other side, and we were at 66, so we're going to bring it down to match the size, and just click a couple times. And then we have under eyelashes right here and right here. So I'm going to click right there and add some of those. And I don't really like that, so let's go back. There we go. Now back to that side. Okay, so that gives her extra eyelashes. So now we have our dots, we have our eyelashes, and I'm actually going to go back, and I think I'm going to put some more dots. Just go get a little brush. Yeah. And white. And I'm going to put too big. A line. Here. Okay, And now the last thing that we're going to do is add a light flare over to the side. But let's merge all of this first. So I'm on my top layer. I hold Shift, right click, and merge those layers. Then we're going to go to Filter, Render, and Lighting Effects. And we want Omni and 2 o'clock Spotlight. And at first it's going to be smaller, but you can make it bigger by those little controls. And I have my negative at 26, my matte at 74, and plastic at negative 57, and then negative at 20. And I'm going to hit OK. And so there, we added a little bit of light. And that's it. You're done with your avatar. So you can put your watermark. I would probably put it right here in my upper right. Put your watermark in and turn that in as a JPEG.